Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the ARC Digital Transformation Viewpoints podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things related to digital transformation in energy, industrial, and critical infrastructure applications. The podcast is the creation of the ARC Advisory Group Digital Transformation Practice. ARC advises leading companies on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business. To engage further, please like and share our podcasts or reach out directly on Twitter at ARC_advisory, or please go to the website at www.arcweb.com.
Hello, this is Harry Forbes from ARC Advisory Group. I'm here today with Michael Lofty, who's the Senior Vice President of Power Systems at Schneider Electric. And we're going to talk about the industrial Internet of Things enabled switchgear lines that are now being introduced in the market, and specifically some new introductions by Schneider Electric. So, Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Harry, and thank you for having me, and I appreciate you taking the time today to talk to me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Well, Michael, I would just like to know a little bit, if you could maybe start out by just introducing us to this launch from a high-level perspective, what's in it, because there's certainly things at the device level, or connected device, intelligent connected device. There are other aspects of it at edge control and also in terms of application. So can you just kind of walk us through what these things mean and what the launch consists of from a very basic level?
Sure, Harry. So we're very, very, very proud to be launching SureSet and EvoPact in the United States and in North America overall. It is our latest medium voltage switchgear, primary switchgear on an air insulated basis in North America, which is there is so many great things about SureSet and why SureSet is a real game changer in our industry.
Well, go ahead, Michael.
Please.
I would like to maybe talk a little bit about some of the trends that we see in the industry here that are represented by this kind of new product. And if I look at the origins, if you will, of the industrial Internet of Things, then we see kind of assets becoming digitized, but really in the beginning, these were big ticket assets, assets that had price tags of 100 or tens of millions of dollars of capital invested in a particular asset, and also tended to be assets that rotated. So people were applying these analytical technologies to large turbines, large generators, large motors, fans, drives, etc., that were critical for operation. But these kinds of equipment generally also had some capability, maybe just local capability for analysis of their own performance. But when you come to electrical switchgear and that type of asset, not only is the capital expense lower, although the equipment may be certainly critical, but it doesn't rotate. So what you're doing here is designing a new line of equipment that has more sensing built in to the design of the equipment versus the traditional equipment, which really is, I wouldn't like to call it unintelligent, but you could say most of the operation and most of the behavior of the equipment was invisible. So Michael, in terms of that, maybe you might want to talk about what you've digitized there, and maybe ask what the digitalization change is in this new launch in EvoPact and SureSet, and how it's changing and representing kind of the change in the market as we see it evolving.
Sure, Harry. So we see a massive, so you have asked a complex question. So I'm going to start to just break it into.
Go right ahead.
I will start to break it into just few pieces. So what are we seeing as an industry trend? We're seeing an industry trend towards evolving and renovating the infrastructure across North America. which is primarily focused on medium voltage. So the focus on medium voltage switchgear is becoming more and more and more important. So that is number one in terms of market trends. And that is also driving the need for more digitized solution. And you are absolutely right in terms of that typically legacy medium voltage switch gears will be more of an invisible with minimal functions of connectivity. But
Yes.
what we are seeing as a need, and not just a trend, but rather a license for us to participate in the industry now, is to make the invisible visible and give visibility on all the different parameters, including the positioning of the circuit breaker inside the switch gear, the power, the voltage, the temperatures on the bus bar, and so on. Give the not just the data, but aggregate the data for you to understand what is happening with your power line, with your equipment, and give you a full control of the asset, which does few very important things for you as a facility operator or owner or a user overall. The first one, it gives you control, which also gives you a lot of safety. Because, for example, the Evo back breaker, you can rack it in and out completely digitally. You need to be in the room, yes, but you don't need to be inside the breaker manually to do it. So that is, for example, enhance the safety quite drastically. The second part is really giving you the ability to understand what's happening with your network and puts you in charge by creating, I love how you said it, invisible, by giving you power and visibility over what used to be invisible. The third part is the reliability of the system, because now when you have visibility, you can actually understand more the connection between your source and your load, and where do you need to use what. So it's a game changer from that perspective, all combined. What is also super important is that it helps you understand your decarbonization part, because as we all know, that digitization is big part of the decarbonization and sustainability journey. And SureSet was designed in that in mind, not only that it's reducing the footprint and the material used by 25% compared to its predecessor and whatever is on the market, but it also help you via providing all those digitized information and putting you in control. It helps you make the right decisions that helps you with your digitization and decarbonization journey. Did I
Yes.
answer your questions?
That answers the question, but there's a lot there that I'd like to unpack, if that's okay. And specifically, maybe we start with the some of the differentiators in terms of the sensing. The kind of things that you're talking about there in terms of understanding the speed of the breaker mechanism and things like the erosion level of contacts. Now, isn't that something that typically in the past for the traditional lines of these products, you'd have to rack that breaker out, move it to a test bed, and make measurements and tests on the equipment in an offline mode, and then take your measurements and then return it to service and hope it stayed the same. And that was the maintenance and testing routine. Is that how it was, Michael?
Correct.
Well, I don't mean, when I talk to a lot of end users, what I find is, yeah, they'll do that kind of maintenance if it is, if it's related to safety directly, say it's a safety system or something like that is being fed from the equipment. But many times, the people who have the skills and the knowledge to do this kind of work are tied up almost all the time looking at things that are, if you will, more critical, maybe things that are not working or things that are stopping production at this time. And a lot of times I would say the switchgear doesn't rate that until it's broken. So getting this new kind of sensing is I would say it's pretty revolutionary in terms of getting the measurements from the device while it's operating.
100%. You articulated it extremely well, Harry. Very knowledgeable. And so basically, you are, or the industry is moving, and Schneider Electric is driving this as well, is that you're moving towards a condition-based maintenance and not to wait until there is a problem with the equipment. And that is revolutionary because it gives you, as we talked earlier, it gives you the visibility and the data to do so. But at the same time, it gives you you digitize the process, so you can set alarms, you can set schedules, and it changes the way you look at the whole maintenance process overall, which
Yeah.
enhance the reliability on if you look at it from a cost of ownership and a reliability vector, that it improves it drastically.
Well, just because the asset is invisible doesn't mean it's not critical. In fact, a lot of these situations, that asset is totally critical for the mission of the factory or the plant or the building or whatever. So it is a critical asset, but the addition of this kind of sensing, which you seem to have targeted at specifically the kind of measurements that are indicators of reliability and performance, which is, people have had measurements of currents and things like that for many years, but measuring these new parameters is much more indicative of the equipment condition and reliability. And as you said, it lets people aggregate that and then plan their maintenance activities around the condition of the equipment rather than a fixed schedule and what resources they have available for that to meet that fixed schedule. Another thing you mentioned, Michael, I'd maybe like to go into a little bit more is the control and safety, the remote operation providing that kind of safety. These I've read reports that the typical arc flash incident is usually a multi-million-dollar cost, not to mention the human cost, but is a financial cost to the owner operator. And there's certainly a human cost and risk, and then there's losing the mission of the asset. So these kind of things are the ability to operate remotely is and really do the whole operation remotely is a huge plus in terms of safety, which is maybe one particular facility is not used to it, but there's a large number of these kind of incidents around the world that happen all the time. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely.
And MV is a very common and more hazardous kind of situation for these facilities, and as I said, it's more or less untested, or the equipment has traditionally not been testable or measurable except on a bench. So we're getting through the remote operation and control a degree of safety as well as the measurements of reliability. Another aspect that you mentioned earlier, Michael, was I would call it maybe over design, if you will. You mentioned that I think that kind of high endurance design that you have put into the equipment well beyond what the standards authorities recommend for it. Can you talk a little bit about that and what value that brings to this equipment over an operating life?
Can you repeat that again, Harry?
Sure. I just wanted to know the kind of high endurance design that, say, a typical ANSI standard would be for MV switchgear to be designed for, say, 10,000 operations and your design has gone well beyond that. And can you talk about why you did that and how that delivers value to an owner operator over the years of use?
Sure. So we thought about, as I spoke many times, of course, safety and reliability. And we just want to always push the boundaries when it comes to our quality and reliability for the gears that we sell to our customers and provide to our customers. And when you have this in mind, you try to push the boundaries even beyond the code and the end to assure that you have a really reliable. And if I touch on your earlier point, Harry, on the need of this, remember the loads are changing. Now you're talking about battery manufacturing, semiconductors coming in North America. So the nature of the load is changing quite drastically. So how, and to your point, a 1 arc flash or in general an hour of stoppage time in any of those plants can mean hundreds of millions of dollars and tens of millions of dollars, depending on the industry, that can be quite catastrophic, in addition to the human life, which is like you can't put a price tag on that.
Right.
So, and with that in mind, we designed SureSet to be able to cope with all those types of new loads and the new demands with integration into different types of loads. And I wouldn't go through the bits and bytes, but just imagine how complex a battery plant is and the need for power to charge those batteries and decharge it and discharge it at the time for testing. And at the same time on those semiconductors where you have high spikes of power. So the expectation from a medium voltage switch gear is changing, and we wanted to create a switch gear that address those needs and be able to withhold all those different variations in the load management and shading.
Well, go ahead, Michael.
I just wanted to say, lastly, empowering the customers to make those decisions, which is on the digital journey of this offer, right? To give the customer the visibility and to integrate it in a broader energy and electricity management system within the building or within the factory or the utility. This is the power we give to the customer. So you give them more reliable, more sustainable, more digital, that puts them in control in a safer, more controlled environment to make the right decisions for their business.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about that. Can you talk about, Michael, some of the we talked about the sensing and the remote operation and the safety and so forth. What about these integration with higher level applications? I know everybody may not be interested in that from an owner operator standpoint, but what kind of capability is there, and what kind of services is Schneider Electric offering to customers when they adopt this line of switchgear? What are their options? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, yeah, of course. In general, Schneider provides a multitude of options, not beyond even the switchgear, right? When you talk about our EcoStruxure and EcoStruxure Power and the entire software suite that we provide to our customers that puts them in control. Most importantly here, when we talk about the medium voltage switchgear, it really gives you the all the data that you need, as we talked about. It is the smartest, at least if we talk about the EvoPact itself, it is the smartest medium voltage circuit breaker out there, right? It does a multitude of readings, data aggregation that provides the customer with a lot. I don't want to go to the bits and bytes here, but I can talk for hours about this, but really puts the customer in control. And I think that is really what we're so proud that we've accomplished.
Well, what about customers who Michael, who decide they want to opt for some kind of managed service or something like that. Maybe a battery plant is going to keep an eye on their infrastructure to a greater extent, but other facilities or other types of facilities, maybe not. What kind of managed service or services plans are available for people if they want to take advantage of this new technology, but not staff up and to support it?
I mean, you can set it up the way that you really desire, Harry. So they can, once they get the switchgear and when they do the power up, they can opt in for what alarms they would like to receive and the way they want to receive it. And they can opt also for the type of services. We provide a wide variety of services from Schneider Electric via our field services team. And it really depends. I don't have a one answer for this question. We have a wide suite of services that we can provide for them, obviously, to address their need. Because it really depends on the type of the customer, Harry, and the expectation that they have for their operations.
Okay. And another thing that we haven't talked about is the reduced footprint. You mentioned it earlier, Michael, but reduced footprint has huge value for both greenfield and brownfield. I would say for greenfield, everybody can probably tell you on a project how much the cost of an asset is per square meter or something like that. You said that compared to your past products, this is a 25% reduction in the footprint for a given amount of capacity. Is that about right?
Yes.
And so that kind of capability means that you have substantially reduced, if you're in a design phase for an asset, you've substantially reduced the space requirements for infrastructure, which you can then in turn dedicate that space either to the mission of the factory or plant or data center, whatever, or you can, in some cases, you can simply reduce the size of the facility and get massive kind of capital savings from that, depending on what the cost of the facility is. And there's certainly there's probably a 2 order of magnitude range, or at least 1 order of magnitude range in cost for these kind of facilities. If you look at the high end, say the extremely high end, which might be a semiconductor fab or some kind of offshore facility, the cost is through the roof for a square meter of that kind of facility.
Absolutely correct. I mean, the fact that it is 25%, it consumes 25% less space, gives you flexibility. First of all, gives the owner operator a lot of flexibility to utilize his space. Most of the places where you install those medium voltage equipment, the footprint costs a leg and an arm. So it has financial impacts on the owner operator. It also have flexibility impacts on where they place the switchgear and so on and so forth. So it is a massive value. Another massive value that helps us and the customer is the scope 3 downstream CO2 emission that are significantly reduced due to the fact that we smart engineered and designed the switchgear, which helped us reduce the amount of material that we are using inside the switchgear. So you're creating a smaller, safer, smarter, stronger medium voltage switchgear. And that is an equation it was super difficult for many in our industry to solve. And that's why I'm proud of our team that worked on this. And it provides a massive customer value. As you correctly mentioned, you know this as good as I do. provides a multitude of benefits to the customer.
Well, I certainly know I know about that from the greenfield project standpoint, but also from my past experience in brownfield projects. Nobody ever wants to expand a facility in a brownfield project. They have to work in the existing space, and that is almost a given that you have to do that. And so this kind of space saving is incredibly valuable for this kind of brownfield operation as well.
Yeah. No, agree 100%.
Now, in terms of your applications, we've talked about a little bit about the applications and the ability of the end user to pick and choose what they want to monitor and the level of services they want. But every end user is much more aware now of the cybersecurity threat, and it's not an area where I'm a particular expert, but there are certainly different attack vectors or levels of attack, if you will, that need to be protected. The equipment itself and some of the applications. What kind of work is Schneider doing? Maybe if you look at different levels of the equipment itself, Michael, and the higher level applications, to assure end users that these applications are built with security in mind.
On the cybersecurity, you mean?
Yes.
So listen, we follow all the global guidance and the local regulations and the customer requirements when it comes to cybersecurity. And we literally put the customer in charge of what he would like to put, for example, in a connected level in a cloud, and what would they like to keep on premise. We follow very, very, very strict procedures when it comes to cybersecurity and data sharing overall as a Schneider Electric, and we comply with all the regulations, whether it's on cybersecurity or data privacy. Cybersecurity is becoming a real threat and a real concern to all the customers, and not just in the medium voltage, but overall in everything we do, considering everything. We always recommend also, cybersecurity is a safe practice. It's like when you say something is arc resistant, for example, Harry, it doesn't mean that you go operate it without the proper PPE. So it takes in with the similar concept and theory in mind, is you need to have cybersecurity safe practices within the property, installing wiring and cabling that is not accessible to the public and difficult to find, hiding your Wi-Fi networks. So we give a lot of recommendations when we do connected projects and connected switchgear to our customers and partners, and they need to follow it as well to ensure the highest level of cybersecurity within their facilities. You have customers that are, as you mentioned, data centers and the big industrial customers. They have a lot of experience in this. And for those customers who does not have experience, I highly recommend they go and follow the high cybersecurity recommendations that we give. And what there is, they can find a lot of safe practices, guidelines, in like government websites and so on. So,
well, it certainly is an area that is getting more attention all the time, and as this kind of infrastructure being mission critical, really, for any kind of facility that it's installed in, it's something that needs to be thought about as part of the design of the equipment, and also the installation and operation phase of the equipment.
No, 100%. As I said, it's cybersecurity is a community responsibility. If I may use the word, it is the responsibility of the manufacturer to do everything we can and comply with cybersecurity practices and regulations and rules. but it's also the responsibility of those who install some of those equipment and how they connect it. And it's a lot of the responsibility also falls on the operator, because we need to, for example, if you're connected something like a wire, and we see this a lot of times in buildings, and you go inside and the main modem box or the routing box is exposed to the public. So anybody with a laptop can then just plug in and get connected. That is an unsafe practice. You hide it, you put it in a lockbox, and so on and so forth. You separate, for example, if you have wireless connectivity, you separate and hide the wireless network that you're using for your critical assets and security controls, and to the public network, and do not use this over that. And so many of those safe practices that can enhance your privacy and your data security and cybersecurity.
Well, Michael, this has been really informative to talk to you. And this launch, as you mentioned, is North American. Are you? I look forward to maybe hearing about some of your customer installations in North America. Are you anticipating some new customers or some existing customers in North America for this launch in 2023?
Yes, they can expect to see it in the US market in the second half of this year. We're definitely accepting orders and quotes starting the 1st of April. And as we go, we expected that we'll have, so far we've been having a huge demand on it. So I'm expecting a huge success.
Well, I look forward to hearing about that. I know, critical infrastructure is something that ARC is always researching, and maybe at a future event, either the ARC forum or maybe a Schneider Electric event, we can talk again about with some of your customers and about their experience with this new line of MV switchgear.
I look forward to talk to you more about it once it's launched, and have some customer stories and tell you more about it in the very near future.
Okay, well, I hope we can meet in person to do that, and with the community as well, Michael. So thank you very much for being with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harry, for having me and for your time. And it's always a pleasure to talk to somebody that knows. I learn more by talking to you every time. So I really appreciate you taking the time, Harry.
Well, it's my pleasure too, Michael. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.
Pleasure.
Okay, this has been a podcast with Michael Lofty, Senior Vice President of Schneider Electric for Power Systems, and Harry Forbes from ARC Advisory Group. Hope you enjoyed listening, and be listening again. Thank you.